I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism. I'm against any form of segregation and against racism.
Malcolm Little, or better known as Malcolm X, was a Muslim minister and a human rights activist. He advocated the rights of blacks, which meant that he wanted blacks to have the same rights as whites. He was accused of preaching racism and violence, but that's not the case. He was emphasizing that every human being had a right to live. He was born on May 19, 1925 as Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska. He had 7 brothers and sisters. In 1931, his father, Earl Little, who was a Baptist minister, was found dead. His mother suffered emotionally from this event and was admitted to an asylum. And as for Malcolm and his siblings, unfortunately they were separated and split into foster homes. In 1946, he moved back to Boston and was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison. While being incarcerated, his brother Reynold went to go visit him and began to talk to Malcolm about Islam. Malcolm soon then converted, and after serving 7 years in prison, he was granted parole. By this time, he was already a devoted follower, and he began to study the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, who Elijah Muhammad was the leader of the Nation of Islam, and soon he became a very good friend to Malcolm. On June 29, 1963, Malcolm X led the Unity Rally in Harlem, New York, one of the nation's largest civil rights events. 2 months later, the March on Washington took place, and Dr. Martin Luther King preached about doing peaceful demonstrations and civil disobedience without the use of violence. In March 8, 1964, Malcolm X soon then tore apart from the Nation of Islam, and he started his own organization called the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. After going to a pilgrimage to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, he noticed that he could call a man with white skin and blue eyes his brother, which altered his look on America and had a new hope for integration. When he spoke in his speeches, he had a message not just for African Americans, but for all races. And on February 14, 1965, his home was firebombed, but there was no harm to neither him or his family. And 1 week later, in the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan, he was shot 15 times at close range by 3 men who were members of the Nation of Islam.
We're not just interested in voting so that conditions will be improved for Negroes. We want conditions improved for everybody.
Medgar Evers was born in Decatur, Mississippi, July 2nd, 1925. He was the third of 5 children to James and Jesse Evers. In 1943, he was inducted in the U.S. Army and served in World War II, and was honorably discharged as a sergeant. He went to Alcorn College, which is now Alcorn State University, majoring in business administration. When he was denied admission to the University of Mississippi Law School in February 1954, he became the focus of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. From there, the NAACP made him their first field secretary. During the time he helped James Meredith get accepted into the same law school he was denied to. This sparked race riots at the university, which ended in 2 casualties that were both white. Evers received death threats, and on May 28, 1963, a patrol bomb was thrown into the driveway of his home, and he was almost ran over by a car after leaving his office 5 days before his death. Kennedy's speech thrilled Medgar about the change that was going to happen in America.
We face, therefore, a moral crisis as a country and a people. We have a right to expect that the Negro community will be responsible, will uphold the law, but they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind.
On June 12, 1963, around 12:30 a.m., Evers came home and then was shot in the back. He was rushed to the hospital where he died from all his blood loss and internal injuries. On June 21st, 1963, Brian De La Beckwith, a member of the KKK, was arrested for his murder. The following year, 2 all-white juries failed to convict him, stating that they were deadlocked. 31 years later, De La Beckwith was finally convicted, this time by a racially mixed jury, and sentenced for life in prison.
All
person should have an opportunity to register and vote and do the things that the Constitution guarantees them.
Like Dr. Martin Luther King once said, a man who won't die for something is not fit to live.